This isn't the back door. We've kicked the front door down. It wasn't me. We've seen Andy Burnham come out and try and rewrite history. Those who are responsible for covering up the crime, those who are responsible for facilitating the crime, have questions to answer just as much as those who were involved in committing the crime.
Yeah, it was let's turn the blind eye to crimes and let's try to ruin the lives of anyone who starts looking into this. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's returning guest and a good friend of mine is Miah, all the way from Oldham and Tameside. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Nick. I'm having a good week. I'm definitely having it's been a journey, but I'm having a good week.
Well, it's not very often where I get you on my podcast and you're beaming from one side of your mouth to the other side of your mouth. I'm beginning to think something may have gone on this week that may have cheered you up. Am I very perceptive there?
Well, Nick, 6.5 years ago when we started this out, they were going to put me in prison, remember? Yeah, and they've tried and tried and tried. And now the specialist advisor they brought in, Baroness Casey, has been forced to admit that there was a cover-up of the Pakistani rape gangs. And she acknowledges the ethnicity was hidden. She acknowledges that there's a disproportionate number of Pakistanis when it comes to this specific type of crime. She's still using the word Asian, and she's still not brave enough to talk about Muslims. And then a couple of days afterwards, I saw Dame Maggie Oliver, who I've been trying to drag into this fight. And now, for my own, I wanted allies. I've been trying to drag, and she focused most of her attention on I'm here for the survivors, quite rightly. And she's walked into the room. I'm thinking, Maggie Oliver's here. She's going to say something nice. I want to support the survivors. And she said, what are you talking about Pakistani men for? It's more than Pakistani men. It's the Muslims. So Maggie Oliver has took it even further. What they're going to do? Call her an extremist. So we've kicked the front door down. I think that's what this isn't the back door. We've kicked the front door down. We've gone in, and they're now all scurrying around, rearranging where they were sat, burning the notebooks. All of that is now taking place, Nick. You can imagine the sort of cartoon. It wasn't me. We've seen Andy Burnham come out and try and rewrite history, and it's not going to work for him, Nick, because when Baroness Casey gave her testimony to the Home Affairs Select Committee, because that's what it is when you get called before a Home Affairs Select Committee, you're giving testimony. When she gave testimony to the Home Affairs Select Committee, she made specific reference to the inquiries in Manchester under Burnham as to why she supported a national inquiry. Now, Burnham had been very, very clear up to January this year, 2.5 years, 3 years in Oldham, before that Operation Augusta report, that this is it. We now need to let justice do its course and go after who we need to go after. And what Burnham tried to do was contain it to say, yeah, institutional failings, mistakes were made, things of the past, lessons have been learned, and now it's best everyone focus their attention on going after the perpetrators. No, we want to go after the establishment and those individuals who were partners in this, because the way in which the law works is that those who are responsible for covering up the crime, those who are responsible for facilitating the crime, have questions to answer just as much as those who were involved in committing the crime.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's jump back to the case report first of all. The two things that jumped out at me was her stating that in some of the reports she got her hands on, the word Pakistani had been Tipexed out. I mean, if you want to talk about cover-up, we have documents where the word Pakistani before the words grooming gang and rapist were actually Tipexed out. That's evidence. And the second thing was, she said she looked for evidence for the Home Office claim that more white people are involved in grooming gangs than Asians or Pakistanis. And she said there is no evidence. That was based on nothing.
So this is what we call this, Nick, in the world I come from. We call it misinformation. That's what that was. One of those fact-checking organizations should have gone after that. But we know that all of the fact-checking organizations are funded and sponsored by the mainstream legacy media and the left-leaning establishment.
Let me just jump in there. How many times has that misinformation, that lie been thrown in your face?
In 2020, when it first came out, they used it. The local Pakistanis hammered it down all over the Facebook pages. Raja Mir is a racist, is an extremist. Look what the Home Office have said.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, they tried to use it to shut us down. Yeah. It was under a conservative government, by the way. So the Conservatives have blood on their hands, or whatever your terminology is, you know, in terms of holding them to account. They authorized this report to come out. This report never came out until there was 100,000 signatures, because we went through that entire process. The Home Office had a report. They were hiding the report. And then when they published the report, it's a work of fiction. The civil servants who are responsible for publishing that report and approving the publishing of that report now need to face trial for misconduct in public office.
Yes. And it's not like we don't know who they are. Everything like that will be signed off at different layers. And we need to know we need those people now in the dock.
And Suella Braverman has come out, and, you know, she was sanctioned by IPSO, the press complaints, for saying, no, this correlation exists. And they used that report to sanction her. So, so that, her record needs to be cleansed. And also, I think we've now also got another ally who we had before, but we've now also got another ally who knows how these government documents are now falsified. It's a falsified government document released into the public domain, whose intention was nothing other than deflecting away from the overrepresentation of Pakistani men in the rape gangs, and thereby allowing the rape of our children to continue. Because what Baroness Casey also confirmed in her report and the subsequent interviews is she's increasingly alarmed of how the rape gangs are now continuing, and they're continuing with asylum seekers and refugees who are also Muslim. And from, you're talking about the Afghanis, really, I think, is what she's making reference to. Once it plays out, you'll see that overrepresentation. And again, Nick, I've always made reference to these as rape clans. And if you look at the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, those borders are artificial.
Yeah, there is no border.
Yeah, it's clan. Yeah, one clan goes on the one side and the other side. So what you've got is Pakistani rape clans have now extended their operation into the Afghani element. They've come over here. And our little children are fair game. Katie Lamb, again, shared a piece of work yesterday of a recent conviction in Scotland, Falkirk, I think it was, of an Afghani who dragged a child off the street in broad daylight and raped, right? And his defense counsel said it's a cultural issue. It's different where he comes from. Child marriage is allowed. Now, this is a defense counsel. I know they've got to do a job, but this is outrageous. Child marriage might be allowed where he comes from, but it sure as hell isn't allowed here, even though the social services in Bradford facilitated child marriage, as part of the grooming gang network, by the way. That'll come out. You'll see that'll come out properly. But what you've got here is a clear acceptance that these people have alien cultures, alien beliefs, alien religious morals that have no place in a liberal Western democracy such as ours. And they have been trying to cover this up to preserve the fallacy of the fake liberal vision of a multicultural utopia without having to deal with the lived experiences of the rest of us who have to deal with the consequences of them believing that they can drag a child off the streets in broad daylight and rape her because that's accepted where they come from.
Yeah, I would challenge that, because child marriage might be acceptable in Afghanistan and Pakistan, but rape isn't acceptable. They may do it, but there's no one you can speak to in Pakistan or Afghanistan and say, "Is it okay if I rape your children?" They'll go, "I would slit your throat if you tried."
So why are these liberals trying to present this as a rationale as to why that took place. Actually, what they do, and again, it's the white liberals, what they do is make it worse for people from those places who are equally appalled, outraged by what's taking place. You will not find a single friend of mine from that community who'll say, yeah, it's okay, my daughter was walking through town and someone grabbed her and took her into the bushes and raped her. But it's okay because, that's what happens back there. They'll say, you know what they'll do back there? It'd be a different form of justice. It wouldn't even make the court. It wouldn't even make the court, Nick.
Exactly, and that's why I know it's rape isn't accepted in those countries, because those clan members will slaughter you if you touched one of their females. That's what it is over there.
So there's the avoidance of that issue that we go back to, which Baroness Casey picked up on and is dancing around. Why did they target white girls? Now we know there's a correlation. The question surely has got to be, why did they target him? And why were they allowed to get away with it? And she's starting to touch, and people are starting to have the debate. I saw a piece in The Spectator, a very posh woman, Lara Brown, I think she's called, very well spoken, wrote an article yesterday about the Labour men, and I'm if I'm beaming, I'm beaming with a smile because I now find, they are late to the fight, Nick, but who am I to criticize allies when we need them? Whoever you are and wherever you come from, you are all welcome, because this affects every one of us. And what's now clear is Labour Party politicians are neck deep in the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of little white girls. And the question has to be asked, not just whether there's a correlation, why there is a correlation. And there's two sides of that, or three sides of that. There's a question of what is the motivation that legitimizes these men to disproportionately do what they do. And I've always said it's racially motivated, religiously justified. So they will have to go and ask those questions in the national inquiry, whether they like it or not, because the country is outraged. And the country has been on a journey of education. I'm not a Tommy Robinson, and it's not a criticism of Tommy Robinson, but I'm not marching up and down the streets. I'm educating people. I'm writing reports. I'm going and, and speaking in rooms to audiences, so people are better equipped to understand what's took place. And it isn't a 1 month journey or a 3 month journey. This has been the last 6.5 years of my life. So that's what's helped get us here. And we will have to look at the motivations of this community. And once we identify the motivations of this community, the state has a duty to intervene against that community and make sure that safeguards are put in place to make sure it is either contained first and then eradicated afterwards. And if that means, and I say this with complete sincerity, if that means that they close down mosques, that means that, Pakistani politicians or community leaders end up in prison, so be it. If that means that the madrasas have got to introduce curriculum where they say, these are the teachings in the Quran, for instance, these are the contentious scriptures, which has led to people to believe they can do this. It doesn't matter what these scriptures say or how we take them. The law of this land is the law of this land, and this is not allowed. I want that rammed down their throats, Nick. And I'm smiling whilst I'm saying it to you, but I want it rammed down their throats that this barbaric culture, this belief system, has no place in a liberal Western democracy, because they would not accept it done to any one of their children. So why is it accepted to white children? And that goes down to addressing a deep-rooted cancer of racism and prejudice that exists in my community.
Yes, it's this report now has opened the gates to this now, more than anything else. But have you noticed within hours of the report, certain people started rewriting history, started rewriting what they'd said previously, and started saying things like, I've always said the grooming gangs was a problem. I've always said it was a racial issue. And then some people, obviously, because the internet never forgets, have been clipping things they've said 3-4 years ago with what they're saying now. A good one is Owen Jones. Owen Jones is there going, I've never, ever denied Asian grooming gangs, and then a second later, someone's clipped the clip, and it's him 3 years ago going, Asian grooming gangs don't exist. It's a far right trope, and then same with the 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 prosecutor who prosecuted the Rochdale guys, Asian guys.
Nazir Afzal. Yeah.
There's a video of him saying, this is an ethnicity issue, and I've always said it was. And then 2 years ago, a clip from him going, this is not an ethnicity issue. It's like people are trying to rewrite history now.
He's rewrote history. I think what Nazir Afzal has done is he's gone on a journey, and then as he went on a journey, he became more and more of the establishment, in particular the Labour Party establishment, allied with Andy Burnham. And he was pushing this narrative whilst I was being prosecuted falsely and campaigning on this issue. Nazir Afzal, who I first thought would be with us on this, and went and started to look at what he was saying, he was clearly recruited and mobilized to try and contain this. Yeah, and that's what took place. Maybe he was promised the lordship. Who knows what went on, but I would imagine something took place because, the police chief, is it Steve Watson's been knighted? So this is the policeman who was in charge of Greater Manchester Police, who knew, because I wrote to him, he knew his police officers were involved in the political persecution of myself and others through Operation Hexagon in an attempt to cover up this scandal. And he's just been knighted. The chief executive of Oldham Council, former chief executive, Harry Caffrell, has just got an MBE. So he's joined your club and my club. So he's now got an MBE. Harry Caffrell is neck deep in the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children. He was brought into Oldham from Blackburn, where they successfully contained the cover-up of the grooming gangs. The stories are there, but they successfully contained the political fallout. And he was headhunted and brought into Oldham to work with Arood Shah, who is also now doing a U-turn.
I saw that.
She's trying to shift it, Nick, along with what Jess Phillips has done. Oh, it's men. How dare you? Trying to generalize it as men. It's always men. It's men. No, this isn't about men. This isn't something, their motivations for doing what they were doing was not because they were male. Their motivations for doing what they were doing was racially motivated and religiously justified. And trying to say, oh, it's men who's doing this. It's the classic defense of these liberal type of women. Oh, let's throw the misogyny card out. And now let's try and muddy the waters. And it's all to do with men behaving like this. I'm sorry, Nick. Never in my life have I ever decided, oh, I like the look of that girl. I'll go, I'll go and rape her. I'll go and touch her up or even say something inappropriate. It's not men. Men like me, men like you weren't raised like that.
99% of men are not like that. If a woman wants to be safer, you need more men around you, not fewer men, because men are protectors. You need men around you to protect you from the tiny percentage of evil men, but you need men around you. But you're right, it's a distraction technique, and people are now trying to rewrite history. So it looks like they were always on the good side. Now, me and you have talked about particular politicians. We've named politicians. There is an article in the Telegraph today about a specific politician. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the first time you and I spoke, you did a YouTube video, and then you got back to me, Raja, my video's been pulled. Remember it?
YouTube took it down because they said it was defamation.
Yeah. And since you and I talked, at the time you and I last talked, YouTube took down 9 of my videos, all targeting Labour Party politicians, exposing, with facts like I do, took them down for defamation. They took down Andrew Gold's interview with me on Heretics, which had about 600,000 views, and Andrew put it on X, and it's now had another 600,000 views. So whatever they tried to do, it didn't work. But they took all of that down in the lead up to the Casey report coming out because they want.
You defame someone, they should sue you.
I've got letters from the Labour Party.
They should sue you if they think you've defamed them.
Bring it on, bring it on. What at the centre of this, and the headline is Rayner ally dragged into grooming gangs row. At the centre of the entire cover-up, and how, these stories have a beginning, and the beginning of how this got out here, before, and Tommy Robinson's story has a beginning, Maggie Oliver's story has a beginning, a whole host of other people. But the story of how we politicised this and brought this into the open, which now forced this public inquiry, because it's a political campaign that forced a public inquiry, is the carrier bag handed over to me by my now dearly departed friend Warren Bates, who Aldi carrier bag, dossier of emails, evidence when Jim McMahon was leader of Oldham Council, neck deep in the cover up, actively conspired to facilitate the cover up and hide this news for fear of community relations. He's now been dragged into the grooming gangs row because the evidence is conclusive. The evidence is conclusive. He was involved in covering up the rape gangs. And if you want to triangulate all of this, you look at the motive. Well, why did he cover up the rape gangs? Because he was on his road path to becoming MP. He needed the bloc Muslim vote. At the time, UKIP were doing well in the polls. He needed the bloc Muslim vote, and covering up the rape gangs secured him the bloc Muslim vote that got him into power. And the mosque, my mosque, Oldham Central Mosque, reported in the Telegraph also at the time of how there was 100% surge in postal votes in one area. So, this is what took place here. These people, and I say this not with glee at all. It's just the absurdity, the horror of this is when you strip it all away. They sold our children for votes. And Jim McMahon is at the center of this. And of course, he should be prosecuted. He should be prosecuted for misconduct in public office, because as well as his role then, he was front and center in trying to have me imprisoned.
Yeah, I mean, that's how far this cover-up went. It wasn't just, let's turn the blind eye to crimes. It was, let's turn the blind eye to crimes and let's try to ruin the lives of anyone who starts looking into this. It really was a cover-up, and people were targeted like you.
He claims his defense, and I think it's important because the Labour Party are doubling down on this, and it's in the article. His defense is he spoke out. Let me be clear on how he spoke out. All the email shows he was complicit in the cover-up and hiding the news and keeping it hidden from teachers, from all of it. Yep. He then suspended and had sacked a senior councillor, Hughie MacDonald, who had been a magistrate for something like 20 years, chief magistrate in the town for 20 years, conspired and worked with Tony Lloyd. We now know Tony Lloyd is neck deep in the cover-up because Simon Danchuk has come out and confirmed that. And he claims as his defense, he wrote a blog. He did write a blog. A council leader writing a blog on the internet is not speaking out. And he wrote the blog 2 years after the email trail first came out of his role in the cover-up. And his blog was only instigated not by what happened in Oldham, but the Rotherham scandal had been exposed. He could have stood up as the leader of the council and issued a statement in the council chamber. He could have and should have instructed his local education leads to issue a statement and warn parents, schools. The schools were supposed to have been told. Burnham's report in the small print, the schools were supposed to have been told. They weren't. The minutes of the missing meetings avoid that suddenly. And the communications lead he had at the time, Carl Marsden, the name's important, Carl Marsden, celebrated keeping it out of the news. He conspired with the BBC. These people conspired with the BBC, a man called Kevin Fitzpatrick. Kevin Fitzpatrick, the BBC journalist, who in the email trail is a partner in this cover-up. His father is a man called Joe Fitzpatrick, who was also a senior Labour Party figure at the time. All of this connects, and Carl Marsden, McMahon could have and should have gone to the Oldham Times. Sorry, the Oldham Chronicle, the Oldham Evening Chronicle at the time, the only newspaper at the time. They issued lots of stories through there. Surely, there's a problem here. Parents need to be aware. And the facts are children were being dragged off the streets into shisha bars, dragged off from school gates into cars, and taken away, drugged and gang raped and trafficked. Those are the facts. Confirmed facts now. Not only did they hide it, they didn't even go to the local newspaper. They could have gone to the local newspaper. And why did the local newspaper not report on it? Well, the chief reporter at the local newspaper, remember Carl Marsden? That I said he's his head of comms, or was his head of comms who celebrated keeping it out of the news? The woman in charge, or the senior reporter at the newspaper, was a woman whose name is Dawn Marsden. Dawn Marsden now works for Angela Rayner as some chief comms role. This conspiracy, it is a conspiracy, and this, goes to the heart of government. it includes Angela Rayner, it includes Jim McMahon, it includes Andy Burnham, and they can go to YouTube as many times as they want. They can have my videos removed, my interviews removed with people, but it's out, Nick. You know, the truth is out, and there's no coming back from this. Not only did Pakistani men target white girls and gang rape them simply because they were white and their cultural beliefs and religious values legitimized their actions, those in positions of power, tasked, responsible for safeguarding all of us, not only turned a blind eye, and Jess Phillips is saying she never turned a blind eye. This is Jess Phillips who wrote to Oldham Council refusing a public inquiry. Not only did they turn a blind eye, they were complicit in what took place. And justice is coming for them, Nick. Justice is coming for them.
It has to. I mean, they're going to fight. And as we know, they're going to start trying to change the narrative and control the narrative. But if you'd have said to me 2 years ago, we'd be in this position today, I wouldn't have believed you. You know, the house of cards is falling. And all we've got to do is just keep another little push and another card will go over. What we're waiting for now is someone to try to save their skin by going, I'm going to tell you everything. And
well, Burnham started. He wants the investigation to also focus on Whitehall and Westminster. It should not be excluded. So that's either deflection to say, well, you know, it's not us, it was them as well. Or if I'm going down, I'm taking you down with me. It's one or the other.
Well, I would imagine Burnham's going, this may kill this leadership team in Labour. And then they're going to want a new leader, aren't they? So Andy Burnham's is playing many hands.
I'm not going to let it. If need be, I will crowdfund, and I know he listens, and the Labour Party listen to. If Maggie Oliver doesn't go after him, if Rupert Lowe doesn't go after him, I will crowdfund a private prosecution against the Greater Manchester Mayor. I am very clear on this, Nick, and I think we've been on a journey, Nick, and they've underestimated us. We're northern, we're working class. Perhaps we're not the most polished speakers, but we are relentless, and we know the difference between right and wrong. And these are our children. And we have a duty and a responsibility to safeguard our children. And if we don't do it, you talked about you need men, in situations of conflict, you need men. Well, I am one of those men.
Yeah. I think you just hit the nail on the head and you simplified it to basically a sentence. This is all about knowing right from wrong. That's what all this is about, from the pedos to the groomers to the cover-up to the... It's all about knowing right from wrong. And it wasn't complicated, was it? Do you rape children or do you not rape children? It doesn't get much more simpler than that.
Yeah. And it's gang raping children, trafficking children. They killed children. They attacked the parents and family members of children. They made children... They destroyed their childhoods. Hundreds of thousands of innocent children's childhoods were destroyed by these men who knew they were protected. They knew they were protected. Where do you think the 97 men invest? Why did you think Operation Augusta got shut down? If that isn't a classic case of I'm protected, what is? Someone made a phone call to a politician or a council official. They made a phone call to a police officer, senior enough, and it got shut down. And whoever, those people need to be imprisoned. And I'm sorry, who was the leader of Manchester City Council at the time? They need to be called to, they need to be called to the public inquiry. The senior police officers need to be called to the public inquiry. They all need to be called.
I want people in the dock, and if found guilty, I want senior politicians, senior police officers, senior council staff. I want them in jail. I won't stop until some of them are in jail, because that's where this has to end. Roger.
And in a democracy, you've got to put people in prison, because by putting people in prison, it's a deterrent to everyone else that this sort of crime is not acceptable. That's how our system works. Punishment is not just punishing that person. It's sending a message out to everyone else that we do not accept this.
Yeah. No, it's saving future victims from being victims. And that's just as important as the victims today. You speak to any victims, as you have done. Most say to me, when I say to them, what do you want? Why are you campaigning? If you could wish for one thing, and most of them say, I wish I was never a victim in the first place. And so we need to stop the next generation of victims on behalf of today's victims.
Agreed. 100% agreed, Nick.
Roger, more's going to come out of this over the next couple of weeks. So keep your diary free. I'm going to drag you back on.
Drop me a message whenever you want, Nick. So it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
We're going to be on a fantastic roller coaster when we see these politicians squirm, and nothing's better than that.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. See you soon.
Take care.